All right, so this is the email training. This is going to go over writing formal emails and a little bit of also writing, I'd say, casual emails as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with the slides and present now. So this is email writing basics. So to start off, we're going to make some definitions here in terms of what I define as a formal email. So a formal email would constitute anything as a first-time business email. You're emailing someone else for the first time. It could be a new person, right? If you're emailing a new coworker at a different time or someone for an interview or something like that. That's what I define as formal emails. Another thing is also company staff before your acceptance. So before you've been accepted into the organization, this is the hiring manager, anyone else in the company you're communicating with. This is what I'm going to define as a formal email for the purpose of this presentation, is I'm going to reference these different types of emails throughout the presentation. A semi-formal email will be something like intercompany communication. You're communicating with someone in your company, or you're communicating with a classmate. These are what I think are semi-formal emails. And these are all same level coworkers or people who have just generally set the tone of the email as semi-formal. And then the casual email, which I'm really not going to go over a lot in this presentation, simply because a casual email is just really no real conventions there. Friends and non-business communication would be a casual email there. So just keep these in mind because I'm going to be referencing these throughout the presentation. Ben or Victoria, anything to add? Okay, I'll take that as a no. All right, so the first thing here is who sets formality. You might be wondering, okay, so I know these premises for what types of emails I should be writing, but who should be setting this? And for first-time emails to what a quote unquote superior, someone who has a higher level position in you, or a teacher, a professor, anyone else or someone you're doing cold outreach to, they would be considered the superior. You're always going to be using more formal email styles for that. So you're always going to go with very formal emails to that. And then to an equal or lower level, this is a coworker, a classmate, or anyone who's under you, anyone you're managing, you can set the formality. You have the power in that position to set the formality of the email. And the way you do that is when you're responding, you can use different tips and you're going to use different strategies to make the email a little bit less formal. We'll go over that throughout the presentation here in terms of how you can reduce the formality of an email. And then for responses, you should use the formality of the sender, right? If they're signing off with their last name, you should also address them as that. That's part of the setting the formality of an email. And then if you are superior, like I said before, you can change the tone to be less formal. You don't have to. That's why I bolded the word can, but you can change the tone to be a little bit less formal. So that's a little bit about who sets the formality. If you're ever wondering, okay, how formal should I set it? If you are the superior, that's your choice. You can set it however you wish. Okay. And Victoria and Ben, I'm just going to pause at the end of every slide. And then if I have silence, I'm not going to move on.
Sounds good.
Okay. So we're first going to address email send time. And for formal emails, I know Ben was talking to me about this, and Ben, I also want to hear your viewpoint as well, because this is not a formal thing here, but I tend to avoid weekends and holidays simply because if you're working in a large organization, you're not going to be checking your work email on weekends or holidays or after work. That's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time. I personally think it's a little bit unprofessional because it shows that you aren't necessarily, you're kind of doing something more casual thing if you're sending something. But Ben and I can absolutely agree on this. Please do not send things at 1 a.m. at night. You don't want people to judge your sleep schedule. That you don't want that to be anything of judgment. So always, at least for me, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time are all safe times. Ben, you want to maybe share your viewpoint here a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say it does vary to some extent, though. For instance, if you are applying and it's a thread that's been going for a while, it's okay to be a little more lenient here. For instance, so if it's a first-time email and you want a higher chance of response, you definitely want to send it during business hours, or you're really lowering the chance that you're actually going to get it responded to.
And not only during business hours, Tuesday to Thursday are the best days if you are doing a cold email and you want to get a response, because Monday everyone is back to work for the first day and they're all flushed with emails from the weekend. And same with Friday, people are trying to finish up the last work before the weekend. So Tuesday to Thursday are really the best bets there if you want to be getting a response. For semi-formal emails, daytime on weekends, it's perfectly fine. Weekdays, just try not to send anything at an extreme time, because like I said, you don't know, maybe the other person is a really big stickler on getting enough sleep at night, so you don't want them to downplay you for sending an email at an odd time of night. And same with also teachers and professors. They will complain about it if you send an email at 3 a.m. at night. They'll say some people are staying up too late. Just avoid that. Just send them between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. You're going to be freed from judgment. Casual emails, like I said, casual emails anytime is all right. You do whatever you feel like it. Okay, next point here is also a little bit contentious here in terms of there's not necessarily kind of a gray line. If you want to show that you have considered the email and you want to show that you're spending time responding, don't respond instantly, because if you respond instantly, the person already knows the maximum amount of time you spent on that email. So if you're writing a good response and you're sending it in 2 minutes, then the person can obviously tell you didn't spend a lot of time writing that email. So usually anything over 30 minutes is always a safe bet. Although there are situations when you should respond immediately, like if you're in like an email chain with someone and you're kind of going back and forth emails, then it's rude to not respond immediately. Ben, did you want to say something?
Not much to add here. I just want to make one more note. You can always schedule send an email if you're drafting it at 4 a.m. or anything like that. So to schedule send, we can go over that at the end if people don't know how, but Gmail has a really easy feature right next to the send button. Highly suggested.
Yeah, exactly. So you should definitely take advantage of the schedule send feature. If you don't know how to use it in Gmail, it's right next to the send button under the arrow. You click on the downward facing arrow to the right of where it says send, and then you schedule it. And then this is a rule. This is a widely accepted rule that for business emails, you should be responding within 24 hours, Monday to Friday, holidays excluded. This is a widely accepted throughout the business world and throughout general guidelines is to respond within 24 hours. This time, I know some people say 48 hours, okay, some people say 12, but usually no one can fault you if you respond in 24 hours. And sometimes you're in a really busy time of year, and let's say you have a big paper to write or something like that, and this email is not such a straightforward response. In that situation, it's very all right to send them an email saying, I received your email, however, I'm really busy, I'll give you a response by XYZ time. That's the way to say if you're really busy and you can't respond, because that email takes a minute to write and send. Say, hey, I received your email, I'm really busy, I'll respond this day. You're done in a minute. So, and if you're going to be on a vacation or you're going to be in some sort of situation where you know you're not going to respond, just send an auto responder. That's super easy to do. It's a vacation response and the person will know not to do that. The same rules apply to proposing meeting times. If you're going to be proposing a formal email, please don't propose it as time on the weekend or at 10 p.m. at night, because that looks really unprofessional. The majority of people who work are going to be working from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 8 to 5 local time, Monday to Friday, excluding holidays. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to be going over 2CC, BCC, in case you didn't know the difference. 2 is the pretty easiest one here. It's just whoever the email is directly addressed to. CC is whoever else the email is applicable to, right? So let's say I'm writing an email to Ben, but it's also applicable to Victoria. I'd CC Victoria here. So now the difference in CC and BCC is that when you use BCC, other people who receive the email cannot view the other people under who not view the email addresses of the people who are under BCC. So this is great if you're emailing people and people don't want their email addresses to be exposed. Then you can just write one blanket email. This is also good, and it's for the next point here, is with reply all, right? If you hit reply all on an email, it won't go to the people who are being BCC'd. So that's really helpful there. So BCC is an incredibly important and useful feature, and just be aware of this. There's not a lot of, I know some people do not know the difference in CC and BCC, but there is a very important distinction there, and there are many places when you can get in trouble for not using BCC. So just be very, very conscious about that. Second thing to be very conscious about is using reply all, because I think we've all been in the situation where in some email chain, and the person keeps on clicking reply all, and you step away from the computer for 1 hour, and when you're back, you have like 100 unread emails because people kept clicking reply all. Unless the email is really applicable to everyone, please do not hit reply all. And if you do not know if you're clicking reply all, that's a problem you should figure out to make sure you're not doing that, because some email things do it automatically. But usually in most email servers, a single reply is represented by one arrow, and then reply all usually has like 3 arrows or some multiple arrows in the symbol. That's how you would know. For introduction emails, this might happen a lot. When someone introduces you to someone, you should acknowledge them. Say, hey, Ben, thank you for introducing me to Victoria. I'm going to move you to BCC so I don't get spammed with the responses when I'm talking to Victoria, for example. Well, that's a very professional thing to do. If someone is introducing you to someone, saying, thank you for introducing me, I'm moving you to BCC, then start addressing the next person. It's great to meet you, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in really quick, sorry. Just in case some people are still a little bit confused about the BCC/CC thing, because I know a lot of people I've talked to were initially extremely confused as to who to BCC and who to CC. So I just want to give a couple of examples. So for BCC, you can BCC people, like, for example, if you're emailing a bunch of students or a bunch of parents, people that don't really have a relation to each other, don't really need to know what the other people who are receiving this are. For CC, you can CC people. For example, if you're a teacher and you're a lead instructor sending out emails, you would CC your TAs, right? So those are more so people that you might be a little bit closer to. That's just a couple of examples in case that was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Okay, so now we're going to start with the subject line. Usually write this last. If you're going to write an essay, you want to write your title last. It's just, once you get a better sense of what the email is, it's going to be better to write the subject line last. As with pretty much everything else with writing emails, shorter is better. People don't want to read long emails. People don't want to read long subject lines. So the more condensed you're able to make your subject line, the more concise you're able to make it, the better. I'm not saying you should forego important information by trying to put your subject line shorter, but if you can get the same information down into a shorter version, that's definitely better. And try to summarize the email in one sentence. What's the takeaway from it? And there's obviously many formats for writing subject lines. You could just describe it in a sentence, but some very common formats are single word : description, right? Introduction, John Smith and Jane Smith. Proposal, free robotics classes every time library. And what this does is that the first word there, people can read it and automatically know what type of email it is. It's an introduction email, it's a proposal email, it's a whatever email it is. And another very common format is use verb or some sort of action item and then a description. Action requested, end of session survey, response required, acceptance form. These kind of things let the person know right away that this is an important email, or this is what the action you do out of this email. Of course, just these two things are a very small subset of emails, right? The majority would just describe the email and shorter, and it's a little bit less important when you're writing people you already know. But if you're going to be writing cold emails, you're going to want people to click on it. These are very important.
One more note here, just for the lengthwise. Please do try avoiding, if ever possible, going over 5 words. 5 words should really be the maximum in a subject line, because once you get over that, a lot of email clients won't even show the full subject anymore.
Yeah, and if the person's looking at on a phone, there's only so much space on a phone screen that can just show. If it's on the computer, it's probably a different story because there's a lot more space to show the subject line. But yeah, Ben said if it's over 5 words, chances are if the person's looking at on their phone, and a lot of people check their email on their phone, they won't even be able to see it. So there's actually no benefit to writing it longer. Is that anything that's going to hurt you because they're going to miss out on important information. So that's why these single word and double word beginnings are very powerful, because they already show the person within 1 or 2 words what the email is going to be about. That's very important. So these are formats that I recommend highly. They're very commonly used. Okay, so this is a little tidbit here about should I write the date and their mailing address on my email. And the reason why we write date and mailing addresses is because it's a relic of paper letters. When you're writing paper letter, there's no timestamp on that. It's not going to come automatically. And there's also going to be no email address on it. Like there has to be a return address on a letter that you write to someone. That's why we include them in emails. But if you're just going to be writing an email in the format of an email, it's completely unnecessary because an email already contains the return address. An email already contains a timestamp, so you don't have to write it. You should only be including this on very formal emails or emails that may be printed, right? Let's say like a cover letter. Someone may print this out for their reference. Well, then it's nice to have the date and an address on there. Or if it's an official notice or statement, that it's important that if they print it out, that it's people know exactly when the date is. Same with petitions. So anything that could be printed out, has a possibility printed out, I recommend putting the date. But for 90% of the emails, I see it way more often than people put it under email, and it's just completely unnecessary. Okay. Greeting. So this is an interesting section here. So this is referring to that first line of the email. For formal emails, you always want to start with dear. It's the most commonly accepted format for a formal email, and it just sets the tone right. And you can consider using a colon over comma. What I mean by this is, I know it might be a little bit difficult here, I probably made a different color, but dear whoever colon. Dear whoever comma is less formal. So that's why on things like cover letters or things like formal letters, you use this colon here. And what this colon signals is that it's a formal email. That's when you see a colon, it's definitely a formal email. You never write casual emails with colons. That's a rule I'm going to talk about down here. But so when I was talking about in previous slides, how can you tell if emails are formal or not, right? One of the ways is by looking at are they using a colon? If they're using a colon and they are of a higher level than you should respond with a colon because it's used for formal. So for all cover letters, for all recommendation letters, for everything that's formal, you want to use a colon letter because it shows that you consider the email to be very important and that you consider it to be a formal one. In all formal emails, if it's your first time writing to someone, you should use Dear Mr., Mrs. MX. MX is used, MX means, MX does not have a gender connotation there. Same with doctor, but not everyone you can call a doctor. So use MX when you don't know the gender of the person, or I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using MX in any situation. Actually, it's can refer to any gender, and it's especially more used now these days. I've seen, and then write their last name. That's just a common format here. For semi-casual emails, you can consider some things like you can use dear. That's fine. You can use hi, hello, greetings, or just simply name and then a comma. That's fine. Then the formal rule is, I know a lot of people write the second one here, like hi, John. You actually need to put a comma in between hi and John. That's formally what the formal grammatical rule is. However, a lot of people don't know this and will find it very funny if you put a comma in between hi and John. This is why I just tend to avoid this greeting at all, because then you just free yourself from any judgment if you put the comma, if you just choose something else. Because if you choose the one on the right, the hi without a comment, and it's like a librarian or like a grammar hawk, they might get really annoyed. But at the same time, if there's someone who doesn't know that that's the formal rule, they might think that you're messing up with your grammar as well. So that's just a little tidbit there. I'm sorry to complicate things, but I had to say that. Avoid to whom it may concern, because it's just too generic. If you don't know the person, if it's like a mailing thing, just use greetings, comma. That's fine. If you don't know the name of the person, greetings is perfectly fine. And you also want to avoid good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or anything else that implies the time, simply because there's a good chance that by that person, if you're sending it in the morning and you write good morning, what if the person reads it at 10 p.m.? How awkward would it be to open an email and say, had good morning said to you when it's 10 p.m. at night? So just for those reasons, I like to avoid anything that implies the time of day. And like I said before, do not use a colon, use a comma, because that's a signal to them that this email isn't as formal. Right? I think colon and comma is one of the most powerful, and also whether or not you use their first or last name, or those two things are one of the first two things I look at when an email to tell how formal it is, because it's universal. And then you always, usually for semi-casual emails, you can use their first name, last name. It just depends on the situation. I would see how they responded to you, right? If they sign off with their last name or they sign off with their full name, then you should obviously use last name. But if they sign off with their first name or introduce themselves, like say, hi, my name is whoever, in their first name, that's perfectly fine to use their first name here. And again, with casual emails, any greetings acceptable, or I sometimes even use this when I'm like emailing, let's say someone else, and we're just kind of an email chain. It just saves everyone time to not use hello in beginnings, but that's only certain situations.
Yeah, just one thing I want to add quickly. As a rule of thumb for formal emails, you are normally still going to use a comma over a colon. There are cases when colon, especially in that very formal setting, but comma is still fairly prevalent. And then just one more note for that formal rule max note about hi, comma, John. Please don't add the comma after hi. I will literally laugh if I read any emails like that. So please just do not have that comma.
Yeah, it's correct, but it's annoying when people use it, because I find it funny too, because not everyone knows it. It's just grammatically that's how it is. Yeah, and like what Ben said, commas are perfectly fine for formal emails. It's just certain situations like cover letters, recommendation letters, you always want to use a colon. Okay, moving on.
Dylan, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In like formal email chains, should you always say like the greeting, or should you only say it after the first time, or should you just follow what the other person is doing?
I would say just follow what the other person is doing. That's usually when you're in a formal email. 90% of the time when you're in a formal email, you're emailing someone of higher stature than you. That's just naturally how it is. And in that situation, right, if they use a colon or if they use a comma, if they say hi, I just follow whatever they do, because that's safe, because then you free yourself from judgment if you follow whatever their format is, because they can't complain about it. Okay. Any other questions about this? Okay, perfect. Let's move on. Okay, the beginning and ending sentence. So you should really try to begin or end your email on a more casual note before or after the main content. This helps with transitions and makes the email seem less blunt. So it's not like you're just jumping into it. So for example, some good first sentences. Dear whoever, I hope your day, I hope your week is going well. I appreciate you for maybe your response to email, or thank you for, it was nice seeing you the other day, or just something that's a little bit more casual, that's not directly the content, because this just helps with the flow of email. It's not a component that your email is going to be naked without, but it's a very nice touch. It just makes everything seem smoother. And then last sentences. I hope you have a great week. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you again for whatever they did. I look forward to your response. Or please feel free to let me know if you need any clarification on anything. And just a note here, depending on this context, another sentence might need to follow this, because this is a little bit still content related. It's less casual. So you might want to say, please let me know if you have any questions or clarification, anything. Look forward to your response. And then sign off with an action item if it is needed. Like, I would appreciate it if you could fill out this form by this time or something like that. Okay, moving on. For the email body, you really want to keep short and concise paragraphs. And I could go into a whole presentation about how you communicate politely, but that's obviously not the main reason why we're all here today. It's mainly about email formats, but you really want to remain non-accusatory, especially even if you know that they're blatantly wrong, right? So if you're accusatory and you find out, let's say your boss pays you the wrong number of hours, you don't want to say you paid me for the wrong number of hours, even if you know for sure that is the case. You always want to put it in the form of a question. Hey, or blame it on yourself. Did I track the wrong number of hours? Is my record incorrect? You want to focus it on yourself, especially even when you think that they made a mistake. If you focus it on yourself, it just makes you seem a lot more willing. It makes you feel a lot more cooperative, and it's much better to do it this way in any situation. Always blame yourself, because it's going to have the same effect. Right? If you blame them, okay, obviously they're going to look at it, but they're not going to be that happy. But if you blame yourself, they're going to look at it and check their records and say, hey, okay, I'm wrong here. I'll let you know I apologize for my mistake. So they both lead to the same outcome, but one is much more better. And second, another one here is inquire about the logic. Do not argue about the statement. And I know I probably should have provided a more concrete example here, but don't say like, oh, you're wrong, or what you're telling me is wrong. You could ask about, how did you arrive at that conclusion? What did you do to get there? How was your thinking here? And you never want to accuse a superior, at least initially, right? Even if it's something like hours you're getting paid for, and they paid you like completely wrong number of hours, you never want to accuse someone. It just doesn't help you. Why not just say, is my hour record incorrect? There's going to get you the same outcome, and it's very important here. And ask how you can rectify the situation is another thing. And let's say you're working with a teacher and you got a really bad grade on the paper. Don't say, can you be a less strict grader next time? Just say, ask about you. How can I improve my situation with studying for the next exam? Or how can I write my paper better? How can I do better next time? Focus it on yourself when you're requesting, and that way you're able to lead to a lot better outcomes. And of course, like I said, I can make the slide into a whole presentation because there's a whole list of things you should do to communicate with other people when things go wrong. But this is just the tip of the iceberg here. Okay. Salutation, signing for full name versus first name. Full name is primarily for formal emails, right? This implies that you want a response addressed to your last name if you respond to your full name. And conversely, if you see that someone else signs off with their full name, you should respond with their last name, address their last name, because that's usually how it goes. First name is for most emails. That's just usually how most emails go. But again, for formal emails, you want to sign off with your full name. Okay. Different salutations, and I'm going to go, this goes on to the next slide, so I'm going to only pause after that. Sincerely is for formal settings only. That's never something you want to use in a casual email, but it does work in formal settings. Regards, best, all the best, the most commonly used salutations. They're universal. You really can't go wrong with them. They're medium formality. They're not super formal. They're not super casual either. If you ever are stuck or just don't feel like coming up with a different salutation, just write regards, best, or all the best. They're perfectly fine. Best regards is slightly more formal integration of regards and best. It's just a slightly more formal way to say that.
And one more note here, just regarding the regards and best options. I generally suggest saying best regards, not just best, and the main reason is if you just sign best, a lot of people will interpret that as being too lazy to write the other word. So it is actually, especially if it's a more formal setting, it's generally a good idea to use both.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, with the majority of the emails I write, I sign off with best regards because it's the perfect, because usually when I'm communicating an email, it's usually for something formal anyway. I usually don't use email for formal communication. So best regards it's just sincerely just seems like I know why. I read one website that said sincerely is only for like responding to funeral invitations, and I don't mean to go that far to say that. I'm sure I know other situations you can use sincerely, but it's a very, very formal setting. And unfortunately, at least how they taught it to me in school is that use it in all like more formal settings, and it's really not that case. You should use other things. Other ones here. Kind regards is a universal, lighter form of regards or best. This is also perfectly fine. I don't take it wrong in any way. Kind regards is perfectly fine. For warm regards and warmly, you should really only use it for people you know. It's going to be really awkward if you send warm regards to maybe your hiring manager or the person you're emailing for the first time. No, just and same with love. Love is for, I mean, I appreciate it, but it's for friends and family only. That's the only place it should be used. And thanks with great appreciation. I have some people who use this on every email. Don't do that. It's okay to use it when you're actually thanking them for something. But if it's an email about something else and you respond with thanks, what are you thanking me for? If you're not going to thank the person for anything, you shouldn't use that. And then dash your name, informal settings only. Okay. Moving on. For email signature, a lot of times the company will request you to do something. I know with Robotics For All, for business development interns, we give you a format. Use that format. If someone tells you to use that format, use it. But if you can create your own, for example, in your school email, only include necessary information. Use hyperlinks instead of writing out the link. Let's say you have a link to your LinkedIn. Like on my email signature for my Georgetown email, I write the word LinkedIn and that's hyperlinked. Good things to include: full name, email address, phone number, LinkedIn, title, or grade level. Just these are things that you can include in any email signature. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. Just don't put in too much. Some people whose email signatures go on forever. I know some people include quotes. I mean, it's okay to include a quote. I don't have anything against that, but just please don't make your email signature forever, because the person prints out your email, there's probably going to be more of your signature than the actual email content. So don't make it like that. Okay, simple email structure. Greeting, leave a space, body, 5 sentences maximum paragraph. This should go not only emails, this should go in everything you write. Please don't write super long paragraphs. It's just going to be a wall of text that if you're writing college application essays, the person is going to look at it and they're not going to want to read it. So 5 sentences maximum, please, per paragraph. I mean, I guess if there's meaty sentences, write a little bit less. If there's short sentences, that's fine. Leave a space, salutation, space, your name, email signature. This should be the format of every email you write. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And just something to add on, sorry, to the conciseness of the body is do try to split things where there's ever a new topic. So like that's how you should be splitting your paragraphs, because if you don't, the recipient will tend to skip over some things. So if you put multiple requests or multiple action items in one paragraph, people tend to skip over things. So don't try to make your paragraphs like very long, or even if they're not that long, if there's a bunch of themes that go into every single paragraph, it'll get really confusing. People will skip over it. So splitting things off will typically tend to make the person actually read the next sentence a little bit more thoroughly. So that's just quick tip.
Yeah, use bullet points, bold things, italicize things, do whatever you need to do to make things better, right? So it's just make it more clear that way. If you bold things, like if there's an action item, you need to do something, bold that sentence, because that's where their eyes are going to go to first, or give it its own sentence. Don't try to use capital letters too much because it sounds like you're yelling. Bolding is usually best when you want to put emphasis on something, or bold and italicize, that combination also works really well. Okay, email length, the shorter the better. And if it is taking you more than 30 minutes to write an email, you should stop and you should pick up your phone and call them. Because first off, I don't really see why you should need to be taking, and again, like if you're taking time to think about an email, okay, that's fine. But by 30 minutes, I mean actually taking 30 minutes to type. Any email that's longer than, I would say, 500 words should not be done in email. Because first off, you're wasting your own time. Who wants to read an email that's so long? No one else wants to read that email that takes forever. And I know there's such thing called the 5-sentence rule. It's not really a rule, but it's something that some people abide by, and that email should never be more than 5 sentences long. I'm not saying that that's a virtue that you should follow. I know there are many situations when writing emails more than 5 sentences is necessary, but this is especially true for networking emails. If you're reaching out to someone for the first time, it doesn't matter if you're able to write really good things about yourself, really good things. They're not going to read it. So why write a lot if the person's not going to read it anyway? Emails should be short. They should go straight to the point. There shouldn't be a lot of fluff. You don't need a really, really good hook like your English teachers tell you to do it. You just got to get right to the point, make it as short and concise as possible. Do not sugarcoat things. If you're trying to request something, don't go around the bush. Just go straight to it. It doesn't help you, because at the end of the day, if you think they're going to say no, how's it going to help you for you to delay the decision there? So a little bit about email lengths. Always make it shorter and concise. Okay. Closing thoughts is the last slide here. Never write what you would not say to someone in person. I know this is not a cyberbullying lesson anyway, and it's not only applicable to cyberbullying, but if you think that what you would not say what you're saying to the person in person, then don't write it over email. I know someone's having the mask of an email box is a little bit comforting to you, but that's not that you shouldn't be doing this. If you're thinking about making a decision, hey, should I make this a little bit more formal or should I make this a little bit more casual? You can never go wrong with making it more formal. It's kind of like, would you rather show up at an event dressed more formally or less formally? I think I know you could disagree with me, but I'd feel a little bit less embarrassed if I showed up dressed a little bit more formally than more casually. So that's just the same thing applies to here. Informal punctuation, not punctuating, not capitalizing letters, making spelling mistakes, not putting periods. I know that those are perfectly fine in Slack messages and text messages and you're messaging friends. It's perfectly fine. But unless you're really writing an email to replace text message, I'm pretty sure from 99% of the situations where you have to write an email, you should be punctuating. It really doesn't take a lot of time to press a shift key. It's just one extra key. It's not that hard. Please remain respectful to the other person. This goes along with never write what you should not say in person. Just be respectful, maintain mutual respect, and know when it's time to switch for a phone call. It saves you time, and no one likes being a long email chain. It never helps anyone. Phone calls are there for a reason.
Yeah. Also, just one more note on punctuation, actually, because Max mentioned it. Please never have more than about 1 to 2 exclamation marks in an email, and never, ever have more than one exclamation mark in a row. There is no place for the 5 exclamation mark chain in an email. Please do not do that. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, just adding on to that really quick, I would also note for exclamation points, do also look at what the other person, like how the other person tends to write, because some people, they think not having the exclamation part might seem a little bit rude. Other people think having the exclamation point seems unprofessional. Different people think about it different ways. If you check what the other person does, match what they do, usually you'll be fine. But yeah, I have heard
100%.
both ways. So
yeah, if you're responding to an email, unless you are someone who's more superior and you want to maybe tone down the email to make it less formal, you should always just look at whatever that person wrote, see if they're using a lot of punctuation, see if they're using a lot of, if they're writing, you don't have to diagnose it down to how long the sentence is. Just use whatever they're using. It just makes your life easier, right? I'm sure you have different friends you text in different ways. I'm sure some friends you text, you might use a capital letter. The same thing applies to emails. I wrote a whole essay on this last semester. You definitely want to write, just follow their format, and the more you get to know someone, the more you get to know their format, and just follow them. That's how you free yourself from judgment. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the presentation here. I'm going to end the recording now, unless Victoria and Ben have anything else to add, and we'll open it up to questions. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here.